an hour. So Gilpatrick will move on, but Klein will have a chance to come back and race for second. So our next pairing in D class in the Tower Lane out of Mount Moriah, Missouri, in the Night Prowler Camaro of Trent Hamilton. In the pit lane out of Canesville, Missouri, and the white Monza of Aaron Robbins. Small block should be motivated both as the Robbins. Trent Hamilton has an LS-powered Camaro with a stick shift. So that's right, he has a fun pedal. Aaron Robbins with a, I believe a 408 small block in the Monza. Trent Hamilton is your winner. You're going to run a 669 with a 3 at 102.9 mile an hour. Robbins runs a 705 with a 0 at 98.6 mile an hour. Robbins got the whole shot, but Trent wheelied on past him. So Clifford Hollenbeck is your bi-car in D class out of Kirksville, Missouri, and he's third gen Camaro. So Clifford Hollenbeck, small block Chevy motivated Camaro, is your bi-car in D class. Clifford Hollenbeck running a 680 with a 5 at 100.5 mile an hour. So our last pairing in D class in the Tower Lane out of Breckenridge, Colorado. That's right, you hear it, out of Colorado. The 72 Plymouth Duster. The Duster of Mike Taylor out of Colorado. And in the pit lane out of Holt, Missouri, and the black Monte Carlo, Brent Stevenson. Stevenson running an LS. Taylor running a big block Mopar. Two different worlds of technology. Brent Stevenson is your winner. Going to run a 673 with a 2 at 89.3 mile an hour, packing the front end out. Taylor cuts a 410 light, runs a 702 with a 5 at 94.2. So he cut the light he needed, but then Stevenson is able to get around him on the other end. So that finishes up first round of D class. We're ready for C class of Ralston, Ritter, Wood, Denny, May, and Denny. All right, so Alex May's up here and ready. We need Mike Ralston, Dave Ritter, Joe Wood, Courtney Denny, and Lucas Denny. All right, so our first pairing in C class in the pit lane out of Osceola, Iowa, in the bullet-nosed S10 of Lucas Denny. In the tower lane out of Milan, Missouri, in the Fox Body Mustang of Alex May. I believe both of them are shooting a little funny gas. The tower lane might have a Denny Snow tune in it, but the pit lane is going to have a Trent Denny tune in it. Alex May is your winner. Going to run a 6:22 with a 5 at 114.7 mile an hour. Lucas Denny cuts the light, but runs a 6:36 with a 1 at 106.7. Margin of victory, 0.067. So at 114 miles an hour, that's inches, in case you're wondering. Just inches at the other end is how Alex May by Lucas Denny. So the bye run in first round of C class in the pit lane out of Osceola, Iowa, in the black Monte Carlo of Courtney Denny. She's the matriarch of Coyote Canyon Racing, small block Chevy powered. All right, Courtney Denny runs a 6:33 with a 0 to 112.8 mile an hour. The sun's going down, so it looks like the track is tightening up. That's how rubber and glue works. When it's hot and greasy, it's a little slickery, but when it tightens up, the cars will really start to take off. So in C class, your next pairing up in the tower lane out of Osceola, Iowa. In the tower lane out of Osceola, Iowa is in the vanilla Mustang of Dave Ritter. In the pit lane out of Cummings, Iowa, in the fourth gen Firebird of Joe Wood. So we have a small block Ford taking on a small block Chevy. He's great to the kids as they go by. Him and his brother are definitely entertaining to hang out with. .427 cubic inch small block. All right, so that was the last buy run of B class. Boulder Ridge will move on to round 2. So we're moving into A class. There's not as many buy runs here, but there is a few. We got 3 buy runs in one race in A class. So Noah Denny out of Osceola, Iowa, and the big block Chevy Dragster. Partnered with Mike Ralston to make this happen. Noah Denny going to lift a half track. Cuts a 427 light and thought that was good enough. And got what he needed out on the track in a 60 foot. So he'll come around and race second round. So we've got Mike Rowe, Freddie Imgarden have buys, and then Matt Johnson will take on Bonnie Baker in the first round of A class. All right, so we're ready to move on in first round of A class. We've got Mike Rowe up here in his dragster. Perfect name for this dragster, if Mike Rowe keeps it, would be the Dirty Jobs dragster. I bet he's never been told that before. But this car is for sale. If you're looking for a turnkey, big block Chevy dragster, if you'd like to race snow with Denny and see what you got for him, this car is your answer. Big block Chevy dragster for sale. Let's go down and see Mike Rowe. All right, so Mike Rowe out of Chillicothe, Missouri. I'm sorry, Indianola, Iowa. Mike Rowe out of Indianola, Iowa. Completely opposite ends of the spectrum. All right, Freddie Imgarden out of Trenton, Missouri in his 62 Plymouth Valiant Turbo LS job. Fast Freddie is going to try and see what the track can hold in his by run. Freddie Imgarden's going to run a 540 with a 5 at 135.1 mile an hour. All right, so our one pairing in A class in the Tower Lane out of Bethany, Missouri, in the Hot Wheels Fairmont of Monty Baker. In the pit lane out of Bethany, Missouri, in the Hobby Horse Mustang of Matt Johnson. Monty Baker with a 470 or a 971 blower on a 60 LS, and a Fairmont taking on Matt Johnson with a ginormous turbo on a 60 LS. I'm not even really sure what the size is, but that thing is ginormous. Matt's going to see what the track can hold. Monty's going to see if he can break his personal best ET. It's going to be a good race here in the first round of A class. Couple LS powered Fox bodies. That's right, both of them. The Fairmont was the first gen Fox body, and of course the Mustang took it over from there. Matt Johnson is your winner. Going to run a 5:51 with a 0 at 134.6 mile an hour. Monty Baker runs a 5:60 with a 5 at 123.9. Matt Johnson with a 4:71 reaction time and gets out in front, stays out in front, but a great race in the first round of A class. So that means we're ready to turn around and come back to F class. So I think the motorcycle is going to make a quick pass. Jamison Olsen out of Waukesha, Wisconsin. All right, so while we have Olsen in the motorcycle. We're going to have Sawyer Wilson and his junior dragster make a pass. We'll be ready for F class. So Klingensmith, Parrish, Schroeder, and Bond make your way to the staging lanes. Jamison Olson out of Waukesha, Wisconsin. He did drive this dragster or this motorcycle into the track, but I have a hard time believing that he would drove the motorcycle from Wisconsin. He would definitely have saddle ass if he did that. But this is a turbo-powered Yamaha. All right, Jameson running a 660 with a 7 at 111.3 mile an hour. I think that motorcycle is made to run like 9 miles, not an eighth of a mile, because I think there's a lot more mile per hour there. Jansen Van Meter to the tower. Jansen Van Meter to the tower, please. Jansen Van Meter to the tower, please. I know you're hanging out with your buddies, but Sawyer Wilson, his junior dragster, was going to try and make a pass, and something happened. All right, F-Class second round. Here we go in the tower lane. Out of Raymore, Missouri, in the Fox Body Mustang of Dakota Parrish. In the pit lane out of Bethany, Missouri. In the pit lane out of Bethany, Missouri, in the Malibu wagon of Adam Klingensmith. So Klingensmith out of Bethany in the pit lane. Parrish in a Mustang out of Raymore in the tower lane. Second round of F-Class. All right, so Adam Klingensmith is your winner, running a 784 with a 5 at 86.42 mile an hour. All right, so Adam Klingensmith running a 784 with a 5 at 86.42 mile an hour is your winner. Dakota Parrish runs an 835 with a 3 at 81.2 mile an hour. All right, so semifinals of F-Class. And the tower lane out of Kansas City, Missouri, in the Warhorse Mustang of Brian Schroeder. In the pit lane out of Sharpsburg, Iowa, in the 72 Dart is Mitch Bond. The Dart is Jim Ford Hemi powered. The Warhorse Mustang is small block Ford powered. All right, the winner of this will take on Klingensmith in the finals of F class. Bond gets the whole shot. Can Schroeder come around? Brian Schroeder is your winner. Going to run a 7.98 with a forward, 87.1 mile an hour. And Mitch Bond runs an 8.11 with an 8 at 82.5 mile an hour. Bond got the whole shot, but Schroeder come around him on the other end. All right, so our first semifinal pairing in E-Class in the pit lane out of Osceola, Iowa, in the second-gen Camaro of Ryder Collins. In the tower lane out of Canesville, Missouri, in the problem child Firebird of Levi Willis. All right, Willis and Firebird in the tower lane, Collins and the Camaro in the pit lane. This is the semifinals of E-Class. Levi Willis is your winner. Going to run a 7.11 with a 9 at 95.7 mile an hour. Ryder Collins runs a 7.37 with a 9 at 92.6. So Levi Willis moves on to the finals of E-Class. So Brian Willis and Jay Bain have to be smiling standing next to Wendell Willis after Levi moves on to the finals of E-Class. Come on, Jay, get excited. All right, so they'll take on the winner of this in the tower lane out of Canesville, Missouri, and the 71 Challenger of Shane Vaughn. In the pit lane out of Bethany, Missouri, in the Shag Nasty Nova of Spencer Fitzgerald. Listen, I'm sorry, Jay Bain, but I stole the name of your Nova to give it to this one. This is more of a Shag Nasty Nova than your good-looking car was. Looks like Spencer's having a little trouble. Oh, no, they're going to have to push Spencer off, so Vaughn will move on to the finals of E-Class. All right, so Shane Vaughn runs a 7.08 with a 1 at 98.3 mile an hour. He'll move on to race in the finals against Levi Willis in E-Class. I was just informed that Jay Bain says I'm not allowed to call any other car Shag Nasty. The Shag Nasty Nova that exists is at home at Canesville. So we're going to have to call Spencer Fitzgerald's Nova a different name. Jay Bain does not approve and will not pass that name off in any way, shape, or form. All right, we're trying to get Spencer Fitzgerald back to his pit. It died in the water box and looks like it just lost fire, and we're going to have to get him pulled back to either charge or something. All right, we're ready to move on to the semifinals of D class. No, yeah. All right, and the tower lane out of Kirksville, Missouri. Yep. Out of Kirksville, Missouri is Clifford Hollenbeck. Small block Chevy motivated Camaro. In the pit lane. In the pit lane out of Blythedale, Missouri, and the square body S10 of Roland Gilpatrick. I'm not going to say the O word, but the two guys together here, if you put their age together and divide by 4, you would still have a young man. Clifford Hollenbeck in the tower lane, Roland Gilpatrick in the pit lane. This is the semifinals of D class. Clifford Hollenbeck with the red light. So Clifford red lights gives Roland Gilpatrick the win, but Roland's going to run a 686 with a 5 at 97.9 mile an hour. So Roland moves on to the finals of D class. All right, so Gilpatrick will race the winner of this race here in the tower lane out of Mount Moriah, Missouri, in the Night Prowler Camaro of Trent Hamilton. LS powered stick shift. In the pit lane out of Holt, Missouri, and the Black Monte Carlo, also LS powered, but an automatic. So Trent Hamilton in the wheel stand and Camaro in the tower lane. Brent Stevenson in the wheel stand and Monte Carlo in the pit lane. Who's going to win the biggest wheelie contest? Okay, who wins the race? That's more important. Trent Hamilton is your winner. Runs a 664 with a 9, 104.1 mile an hour. Brent Stevenson out there playing the burp game. Runs a 677 with a 7 at 95.6 mile an hour. Margin of victory, 0.007. Trent Hamilton is your winner by just, I think it's because the third gen has a little longer. Well, then again, the Monte Carlo has a long nose also. So Trent Hamilton just noses him out on the other end. We'll move on to the finals to take on Roland Gilpatrick. So we're ready for C class. C class of Mike Ralston, Joe Wood, Courtney Denny, and Alex May. All right, we're ready for the semifinals of C class. Mike Ralston, Joe Wood, Courtney Denny, and Alex May. All right, so your first semifinal pairing in C class. Our first pairing in C class for the semifinals in the tower lane out of Milo, Missouri, in the Fox Body Mustang of Alex May. In the pit lane out of Osceola, Iowa, in the black Monte Carlo of Courtney Denny. Trent told me she needed to get more aggressive in the burnout, and I think she just did. That's not quite a John Force burnout, but for Courtney, that's a lot bigger than what she has been doing. She wants that Monte Carlo to hook for sure because Alex May is going to be right on her. Yeah, technically it would be an Ashley Force burnout if she did it, I guess. Yeah. Courtney Denny is your winner. Going to run a 6:45 with an 8 at 106.5 mile an hour. Alex May got a little bit of a head start, but then smoked the tires a little. Out at the 60-foot, and Courtney was able to motor on. So Courtney will move on to the finals. She'll take on the winner of this race of Mike Ralston out of Powersville, Missouri, in the Fox Body Mustang. And in the Tower Lane out of Cummings, Iowa, in the 4th Gen Firebird of Joe Wood. All right, Joe Wood out of Cummings, Iowa, in the Firebird in the Tower Lane. Mike Ralston in the Mustang out of Powersville, Missouri, in the pit lane. The winner of this will take on Courtney Denny in the finals of C-Class. Mike Ralston is your winner. Going to run a 6:26 with an 8 at 109.8 mile an hour. Joe Wood running a 6:46 with an 8 at 107.9 mile an hour. Mike got the whole shot and stayed out in front. So Mike will move on to race Courtney in the finals of C-Class. So we're ready for B-Class of Trent Denny, Scott Powers, Brent Stamford, and Jeff Boldridge. All right, so the semifinals of B-Class. So A-Class cars of Denny, Johnson, M. Garden, and Rowe. You guys should be getting buckled in now. So the first semifinals in B-Class in the pit lane out of Osceola, Iowa is Trent Denny. Trent Denny out of Osceola, Iowa in the pit lane. In the Tower Lane out of Allerton, Iowa in the square body S10 of Scott Powers. Both of them small block Chevy motivated. Both of them square body S10s. The winner of this moves on to the finals of B-Class. Trent Denny is your winner. Going to run a 6:14 with a 0 at 103.5 mile an hour. Scott Powers got the whole shot. Runs a 6:24 with a 3 at 110.0 mile an hour. Margin of victory 0.005. So Trent just got around him on the other end. So he'll race the winner of this race in the Tower Lane out of Atchison, Kansas, and the Vega Wagon of Jeff Boldridge. In the pit lane out of Cummings, Iowa, and the Chevy 2 Nova of Brent Stanford. Small block Chevy Vega Wagon out of Atchison, Kansas, Marvin the Martian, Jeff Boldridge in the Tower Lane. Small block Chevy Motivated Nova out of Cummings, Iowa, and Brent Stanford in the pit lane. The winner of this will take on Trent Denny in the finals of B class. Who's it going to be? Marvin the Martian or the Iron Man Stanford? Brent Stanford is your winner. Going to run a 6:13 with a 2 at 96.5 mile an hour. Jeff Boldridge runs a 6:33 with a 5 at 112 mile an hour. So Stanford cuts a pretty good line, but so did Boldridge. He just gets around him on the other end. So Stanford will face Trent Denny in the finals of B class. So we're ready for the semifinals of A class. The dragster of Noah Denny, the Mustang of Matt Johnson, the Valiant of Freddie M. Garden, and the dragster of Mike Rowe. Noah Denny making his way. So we're waiting on fast Freddie M. Garden. The Hobby Horse Mustang. I see Mike Rose dragster coming through the staging lanes.